during his deposition in the trial court, it's over Zoom. This dude gets in a car accident during his deposition. He's driving.
You're lying.
I swear. He is driving during his deposition, and he gets in a car crash.
Oh my
And that's the
God.
dude that they're like, okay, we believe this dude 100%.
Welcome to another great episode of Cases Gone Wild with me, your host, John Marco, brought to you by Marco Law. We are going to continue our special edition Trial Lawyers Summit Cases Gone Wild version, where if you tuned into last episode, you're going to hear from dozens of lawyers who are here from across the country to give you their cases gone wild, interviewed by my podcast team right here at the Summit, downtown Detroit, while I am inside the conference. So it's another exciting show. If you like our show, please share with your friends and family. Give us a positive review. You can watch us on our YouTube channel or go to marcolaw.com for the podcast. Without further ado, here we go. Dive in for another Cases Gone Wild.
Can you just tell me a little bit about yourself, where you work, how long you've been practicing law, what you do?
Okay. Well, my name is Chris Patrikas. You didn't ask that, but I'll give that for free. I've been practicing law for right around 4 years. Originally started off working for my dad doing criminal defense, but I've been working for John and, been the head of his appeals department and writing most of his trial briefs for almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in August.
So we work together, and you're the head of the appellate department at Marco Law, and I know you've seen some crazy stuff. So can you please tell me about the craziest thing you've ever seen? You change law all the time.
Yeah, so most recently, this was probably a couple of weeks ago, we just got an order back from the Michigan Supreme Court reversing the trial, or reversing the Court of Appeals dismissal of our case. It's McDuffie is the name of the case, and basically what happened, it was a fatal car accident that, unlike most cases, we were lucky enough to have on film the actual accident. And basically what happens is there's the giant truck driven by the defendant, then our client, the decedent in the case, is in a convertible, and then there's a third car. Now, the third car and our client, the decedent, are like side by side, and it's kind of like a road ragey type thing, where the lane that our client's in is ending, so he's got to merge, and the other guy's like boxing him out, not letting him in. He finally does, and then the dump truck doesn't have working turn signals, turns into our client, and ends up killing. He dies on the scene.
What?
But yeah. So, and honestly, it's terrible. And the PR of the estate, the decedent's mom, couldn't be a sweeter human being. Just the nicest, hey, I know you're just trying your best. Let me know when there's anything going on. And not that you try any harder, but it just makes it a little bit more sweeter when you're able to get those type of, don't get me wrong, I want to win everything, but especially for her, it definitely rewarding. So we're in the trial court. They deny their motion for summary. Court of Appeals reverses it, and the crazy part is that they only credit one witness's testimony, the driver of that third car or whatever, and which is nuts first, because obviously the dude has a vested interest in not telling the truth, because he's potentially civilly liable, and if he did it on purpose, he may be criminally liable for manslaughter of this dude. And keep in mind, we had 3 experts, one of which was the head of the Michigan State Police Investigation Unit, which they just didn't mention at all. But So not only is that third driver the only witness's testimony that they credit all, but during his deposition in the trial court, it's over Zoom. This dude gets in a car accident during his deposition. He's driving.
You're lying.
I swear. He is driving during his deposition, and he gets in a car crash.
Oh my
And that's the
God.
dude that they're like, okay, we believe this dude 100%. We're dismissing this case based upon it. So, and there's a whole nother like spoliation issue where they destroyed thousands of records. But yeah, we got that in front of the court, the Michigan Supreme Court, and they just issued a ruling reversing that crazy decision of this mysterious third driver.
Well, thank you, Chris, for sharing. I know you changed the law in Michigan every single day, it seems like.
I mean, just enough to keep my job, unfortunately.
My name is Alan Latham. I'm a plaintiff's attorney in Birmingham, Michigan. I've been doing it for over 10 years now. Graduated from University of Detroit Mercy in 2013. Started my own practice in 2015. Started out with Vin Johnson's office in Johnson Law. Worked with Danny LeBlanc's office in LeBlanc Law for a little while. Been focused primarily on personal injury and trial law for the past 10 years in my practice now. Working on specifically anything in terms of general negligence, auto negligence, premises liability, and some other interesting cases that I guess we're going to get into.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about one of those cases?
Recently, we've been talking about levels of insurance here at the summit and separation of parties and some of the defendants. I recently had a case where I had a client who was working for one vendor, and that vendor owned the vehicle, and that part of the case was work comp. I had the trailer that the vehicle was pulling was owned by a different entity, and that trailer was being driven and pulled with another vehicle that the defendant wasn't actually licensed to do so. Really, he didn't have the proper training to do so, and there was an excavator on the trailer, and that trailer, my client was riding directly behind them. The excavator hit an overpass, and that overpass, the concrete from that overpass fell on the vehicle where my client was driving on the top of the vehicle, crushed him, resulting in surgery, traumatic brain injury, loss of teeth, plastic surgery, a pretty severe injury case. However, the interesting thing about it was the layers of insurance, the interplay between my claims where, I could only pursue an entrustment claim because the individual or the company didn't own the vehicle that was pulling the trailer. They only owned the trailer. So the crux of my case in particular was the negligent entrustment, and you try to do whatever you can for your client to make it stick. That's where the majority of the insurance was on this case. And there was a late disclosure of limits. I went through the case thinking there was only one level of limit, and there was a late disclosure of limits.
It's never just
at
one.
the facilitation, which kind of changed the course and direction. Some of the information that Mr. Eads gave in today's presentation was very accurate and applied directly to the case that I just went through. So we were able to get that case resolved sort of trial for the client. He was very happy with the outcome, a father of, I think, 2 children. His life has forever changed, but we were able to get a result for him that was favorable. Obviously, it's not his life in terms of what he wanted to get back.
Yeah.
But we did the best that we can in these circumstances, and a lot of times all we can award is money. So that's what we were able to do.
So first, thanks for having me, Mackenzie. My name is Amir Macklett. I'm a civil rights and criminal defense attorney.
Nice.
And so I practice out of Dearborn, Michigan. I've been doing this for 15 years. And, the majority of my practice is going to be, community-based lawyering. So my approach to the legal profession is to try to help as many people as I can. And so I've been blessed to have a very diverse practice, an interesting practice. And, we're here to help others. When I started this career, I started actually when I found out I passed the bar. I was at a trial lawyer's seminar
Nice.
already. Before I had passed the bar, I'd already gone to a seminar to try to, get ready for becoming a trial attorney because I knew I wanted to help individuals.
Yeah.
And that's when I really found the skill set early on to try to represent individuals, like people, not corporations, not insurance companies, not the government. And thankfully, I've never had to do any of those things. So I've always been, a lawyer for the people.
That's awesome. Well, why don't you go ahead and share one of your craziest clients or cases that you can remember being involved in?
I mean, there's so many different types of cases that I've been involved in, and so a lot of my work is criminal defense. I'd say a good maybe 40% of my practice is criminal defense work, which gets a lot of crazy cases.
Oh, yeah.
I just had a case recently where I was representing a semi-truck driver, and this is a young guy that is, originally Indian, from India, not even 25 years old yet, moved to Canada, and then began driving a semi-truck for a Canadian trucking company. And he was traveling to Chicago to pick up a load. And he's coming back from picking up a load in Chicago. He's crossing right into the Michigan border, right over Indiana, and he's pulled over for what the police officers say is, not having a full reflective tape on the back of the semi-truck. So just really a pretextual type stop. For whatever reason, law enforcement was watching this specific trailer's company. They had reason to believe that something was going on with this trailer. And so my client is stopped. He pulls over, obviously, and lo and behold, they end up doing a search of the semi-truck trailer. They found 125 pounds of cocaine
Oh, wow.
in the back of the semi-truck. And so this poor guy obviously had no idea and was in a position where he's trying to justify and explain how he's in possession of so much drugs. And, there's a lot of rules and regulation when it comes to semi-truck, transportation. There's bills of lading. There's regulations about how you're putting on. Is the container locked? Was the driver ever involved in putting, anything in the trailer? So they're trying to impute knowledge to this individual who really is saying, I didn't know about it. I just picked up a trailer.
Right.
So when you had that much of a bust, the local police, obviously are excited.
Oh, yeah.
So they,
Big day.
they try to get, higher up agencies involved, but the federal government didn't pick this up, which is pretty surprising to me. Usually the feds will pick up something with that much drugs in it. But in our situation, it stayed local, which was a big help for the defense. Because the local cops are not as experienced in the rules of semi-trucks, and they don't have the resources in terms of investigating and going out to, the different areas. So what I did and what I found to be successful in defense of my client, who ultimately got a great result, was I actually went to where he picked up the trailer. And I interviewed the people at the loading dock, and I interviewed, what the procedure is when somebody's coming and going, and I tried to find if there was any video of him picking up this dock, and I followed the track of where my client went. He went to, he's coming from Chicago. After he picked it up, I interviewed those people. I found out what was going on. I went to a rest stop where he had stopped, and I looked around to see if there's any video evidence of that. I went to a gas station where he stopped to fuel up, and I really, put myself in my client's shoes to understand, where he was going, where he was coming from. And these officers hadn't done all those extra steps. And so when I held a preliminary hearing in this case, and I was able to show that you didn't do that, you didn't go to the docking port, you don't know how these trucks are involved in, you didn't know whether or not this was a locked trailer or where this trailer came from, things of that nature. We were able to show that they really did very little investigation.
Wow.
And they didn't have any ability to show that this guy had knowledge of 125 pounds of cocaine. And so, he ultimately didn't get bound over on that case. He didn't end up having to plead guilty to, 125 pounds of cocaine.
That is crazy.
So, I mean, that's just going the extra step. And the positive thing about my practice is because I do a lot of personal injury work also, and I've been involved in semi-truck accident cases, and I've learned from some of the guys at the seminar here today, about semi-truck cases. I understood what the rules were when it comes to, semi-truck drivers, what their the Department of Transportation obligates them to do, some of the requirements of picking up and dropping off, loads and certain, just data that local law enforcement wouldn't have a real understanding.
Right.
And so that helped because I took my civil law experience, which is like through injury work and things of that nature, and I applied it to the criminal defense side of things. And so thankfully for having all that ability, we were able to help this guy because, otherwise he would have been facing clearly deportation, maybe 20 years in prison.
Oh, absolutely.
A whole host of very negative things could have happened to this young guy.
Absolutely.
If we hadn't, gone the extra steps and done that. So, that's the most recent case in terms of crazy cases. I mean, I've done cases of murder. I've done cases of kidnapping. I've done cases where people have been shot by law enforcement and shot by police. And so, there's a lot of craziness in the practice.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think that one is crazier than the next. My feeling is, everybody has their own experience, and to them, that individual, that is the most important thing in their life and their world, and we have to advocate on behalf of those folks.
Absolutely.
And so that's been my experience in the practice of law.
My name is Colin Wilkin. I'm an employment attorney based out of Ann Arbor. I'm with Hurwitz Law. I've been practicing for about 3 years, and yeah, we've done a little bit of work with John, and
Yes, you have.
yeah, we have done a little bit. So that's who I am.
All right. Well, why don't you go ahead and tell us about the craziest client or case that you've been involved with?
Yeah, so I was doing a little bit of thinking about, there's a couple cases that stand out, but the one that stands out the most, we had a client who came to us and said that his boss called him a racial slur to his face, and then fired him 2 days later when he tried to stand up for himself. And so he was working in a car shop, basically a dealership, and his boss was talking about one of his coworkers and, said, oh man, she's such a, so-and-so. And he goes, well, you know that I'm Chaldean. And he goes, what? I thought you were a Mexican. And she said, no, I'm Chaldean. You can't say that. No. And then so he called the HR department and said, hey, my manager just said this to me, and I think that's really offensive. And 2 days later, he's fired.
Oh.
So he comes to us and we're like, yeah, this sounds like a slam dunk case.
Yeah.
So we file a lawsuit, and the company goes, well, his manager didn't fire him. The general manager fired him. He didn't know about it. So our case gets dismissed because the general manager didn't know about the racial slur. Except that his manager was the one who recommended his firing to the general manager.
Oh.
So we're in the process of getting it brought back now, but we feel like it's going to come back because his direct manager says this thing to him 2 days later after he calls HR. We have a record of it. Says, you can't say this. And then it's like, we don't like this guy, fire him.
That's
and they
insane.
do.
Still
it's
on
crazy.
appeal?
It's still on appeal. Well, we have a motion for reconsideration pending right now, but it's been pending for 6 months, and
it's gonna pend.
It's gonna keep pending. So if we lose that, we'll file an appeal. But
all right.
So we'll see.
Well, fingers crossed for a great outcome for you guys.
Yeah,
thank you so much for sharing, Colin.
Yeah,
we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so my name is Kurt Zahner. I'm a professional dragon slayer, and I've been doing that in some capacity for 19 years.
Awesome.
19 years. I quit being a lawyer twice because I hated it. I took 1 year off and traveled to Argentina, another year off and retraced William Wallace's steps in Scotland, trying to find the spirit of Braveheart and find my own Braveheart. And so, technically probably like 14 years, 15 years, but it seems like 19 since I left law school.
Wow. Well, nice. Why don't you go ahead, let us know your craziest case or client even that you've been involved with.
The craziest case I've ever been involved with. This is Cases Gone Wild, yeah?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Cases Gone Wild?
Cases Gone Wild.
Gosh, I had an electrocution case where our young man was electrocuted and developed something called CRPS, Complex Regional Pain Syndrome. It's a debilitating nerve condition which makes it feel like your limbs are on fire all the time. It's that your sympathetic nervous system is supposed to control fight or flight, heat and cold, not pain. Anyway, the whole case was about this electrical box that exploded, and the defendants destroyed the electrical box. So we couldn't really prove our case. So we got a big sanction from the court, and they said, look, you have an irrebuttable presumption of causation and liability. And I say this in passing as if it was a fait accompli. It was very hard to get the sanction. Took a lot of great brief writing. We got it. We go to trial, and it's a small family business that destroyed the box, the defendant, called Excel Electric. In opening statement, and they never told us. They never, what they did is they lied about when they destroyed it. They lied to, they told us one story in deposition, another story in interrogatories, another story to the workers' compensation investigators, another story to somebody else.
Wow.
None of them matched up. So in trial, for the first time, we got an explanation as to why they got all their dates wrong. And they said, our father was dying. Well, as a human being, you're like, well, that's awful.
Yeah.
Of course you could get things mixed up. They said he was going through hospice that year. It was very challenging, a lot of grief. So we got the dates mixed up, for when these people were coming to us during that time and asking us what happened.
Yeah.
That's why it was. Okay. That wasn't true. That was a lie. Their father had died the year before.
Oh, no.
Well before all this even happened.
Oh, no.
So we figure this out. We find a coroner's report online. We find the Boulder Daily Camera newspaper, which shows all this. So we get into trial, and we have the moment to confront them, what is later dubbed by the defense lawyer as a Matlock moment. So the brother gets up there, Mr. Heil, and I'm asking my questions. He's like, I want to tell you why we got the date wrong. I go, I bet your counsel will ask you those questions. I'm not interested right now in this. I wanted to lay the trap for the end and didn't want their counsel to have a chance to get up and rebut what I was going to say. So then the other lawyer gets up and she's like, why did you guys, tell people different stories? Well, because our father was dying during that time. It was very difficult. Blah, 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 blah. Great. I get up and I say, and my team's ready for this. They're all excited. And I say, Mr. High, I only have one set of questions for you. May I ask you about your dad dying? Is that okay? It must be difficult. I have a father. I can't imagine what that would be like. Yeah, I have a job to do. I understand, sir. Yes, please, go ahead. Ask the questions. Thank you, sir. Thank you. You've been telling everyone it happened in 2018 when he died. That's why. That's right. That very, very difficult time. Sorry for that. Here's the problem I have, Mr. Heil. I say, Your Honor, may I approach? Yes, you may. I go to counsel table. I've got these two documents. The other side doesn't know what they are. They don't know this is coming. I haven't disclosed them. I've probably violated some rules of evidence. I don't know, but we're going to have our moment.
We'll find out.
So I grab the pieces of paper, 1 and 2, and my whole team's on pins and needles. Are watching what's going to happen. Defense lawyer looks over. I later learn. It's like, what has he got? I don't know. What has he got? I don't know what he's got. My approach a witness. You may counsel. I say, the problem I have, Mr. Heil, is here I have in my left hand the Daily Boulder Camera newspaper report, and in my other hand, the coroner's report. And both documents show that your father died a year before any of this happened. And I slide them across the table. And he looks down at the documents. And he looks up at me in bewilderment. He looks down at the documents and looks to his lawyer, scared. He looks down at the documents, looks up at me, and he goes, You're absolutely right. I said, no further questions, Your Honor. And he goes, and the witness saying, he goes, but Mr. Your Honor, I want to explain. She goes, there are no questions pending, sir. You may walk back to counsel's table now. Case was over. They offered the full policy limit. We said no. We're rolling the dice. And we got a $16 million verdict. They'd offer us $3 million after that day. And it was just, the defense lawyer never practiced law again as a defense lawyer. She went and did something else. And she told me that was the Matlock moment she always wanted in court.
Wow.
That's my crazy story.
My name is Darren Legato. I am an attorney at Marco Law, and I've been practicing for 12 or 13 years, somewhere in that area. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Nice. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about the craziest case or client that you've ever been involved with?
One of the craziest cases I remember being involved in. Unfortunately, the crazy ones always seem to mess with or have the most traumatic injuries and things like that. I had a case a few years ago where we had a mother pushing her 4-year-old child in a stroller and just pushed her right out in the middle of the street and was hit by a vehicle that had just been finishing up a DoorDash delivery. Or one of those delivery companies. And we had represented the mom and the daughter. The mom's case, she's walking out in the middle of the street, not the best, but they wanted to put all the liability of the mom onto the daughter. So we had to, going after the driver, and then also something that's a little novel in Michigan is bringing DoorDash into the case as well. Mm-hmm. They're considered independent contractors. Mm-hmm. So they had to fight that every step of the way about whether or not they could individually be liable or whether or not it was just all through the their driver, I guess.
Right.
So what we ended up having to do in that case was just continuing to push and find out that they were agents. They carried around all the bags that said whatever delivery driver it was on there. They had different signs and everything that they were going on. And then when we started digging in further, the company couldn't produce any of the records. And then the driver's stories started to change. And all these different things start playing out. And that always ends up being the worst thing for the defense side, at least in a case, is once things end up not matching up. So we couldn't... the witness was very clear about where they were at and what they were doing, and then there's no record of it anywhere. They couldn't find any records of this ever happening and all these different things. So we just had to keep prodding, and for a company that didn't want to be liable at all, they ended up paying an awful lot of money to get out of that case.
I'd imagine so. So you guys got a good outcome?
We did for the child's family, unfortunately, but it was a good outcome for the difficult liability hurdles that we had in that case on a lot of different fronts.
My name is Jordan Jones. I am the owner and trial lawyer at Los Angeles Truck Accident Lawyers, based in DTLA, right in Little Tokyo. Been doing truck accident cases my whole career, 13 years. I've been doing trucking exclusively for, I think, the last 6.5, 7 years. That's all I've done is trucking cases.
Nice.
Yeah.
So go ahead and tell us about the craziest case that you've been involved with.
Okay, it's a crazy thing I was involved in. Had a case, trucking case, and the truck rear-ended a line of cars, and there was a lot of people that were hurt very badly. My client was catastrophically injured. There was another gentleman with a brain injury, and a couple of people had orthopedic injuries. So there's a lot of lawyers in the cases.
Yeah.
And I had the most badly injured plaintiff. And the trucking company had $1 million, and basically they called up right away and said, "Here's our $1 million, take it, you guys figure it out." And that wasn't good enough for me. I have to do some investigation. I can't just say, "Oh, we only have $1 million." I say, "Oh, okay," So I got to do some investigation. So anyways, like everybody was screaming at me. Like the defense lawyers were yelling at me, and like the other plaintiffs' lawyers were yelling at me because they viewed it like I was holding up the case. But it's kind of a very long story. I ended up finding another $10 million in coverage. That was actually
Nice.
on the trailer. It was covering the trailer, but the way the policy was written, it attached to the driver. He was defined as an insured.
Okay.
So it went from $1 million to $11 million in coverage. So this comes out, and the defense lawyer calls me, and she's like, "Hey, what are you looking for on this case?" And I told her, I said, "Well, I think this is an 8-figure case." And she went ballistic. she lost her mind. She was like screaming at me and yelling, and she's like, "I've never paid that kind of money. I will never pay that kind of money." She goes, "That's never happened before." And I said, "Well," "things that have never happened before happen all the time." Right? And she hung up on me. All right. So fast forward is, I don't know, maybe it was 8-10 months later, kind of going through the process, getting closer to trial. We end up in mediation, end up resolving for, my client resolved for 8 figures. And when the case was done, I sent a basket to the lawyer. And the little notes or whatever, I wrote, my notes said, "Things that have never happened before happen all the time." And I sent the basket. So
That's a good one. That's a great outcome.
It was it was a great outcome for my client. It's a great outcome for her. I mean, it was obviously a bad situation, but I was happy I was able to help her out. So yeah.
Hi, Kenzie. My name's Dave Christensen. I'm a trial lawyer in the Detroit area. We practice in Southfield, and we represent people that are seriously injured through accidents and car accidents, or maybe on other people's property, things like that. We have a niche in representing people with traumatic brain injury.
Okay.
And so I've been doing this about 35 years almost.
Wow.
And we have a firm, it's called Christensen Law.
Nice. Well, why don't you go ahead and tell us about the craziest case or client even that you can remember handling?
The craziest case has to be a case that we tried about 1.5 years ago. And a very sad case. It was a case that involved a death. A young man, he was 30, died early one morning. He was a really nice guy. He lived in the city of Ypsilanti, and he left his apartment about 5:30 in the morning to walk down to a gas station store where he would buy snacks and get his morning coffee and things like that. Well, he's walking down, and there was a group of people, 3 people hanging out in front of that store. not savory people. They've probably been hanging out there all night.
Yeah.
And we don't know exactly what happened, but on the video camera, some kind of altercation ensued, and one of the people in that group drew a knife and slashed his arm right across his bicep. Started bleeding really bad.
Yeah.
There's an artery right there.
Yeah.
He's gushing. He walks into the store to ask for some help. His phone had been knocked out of his hand, so he didn't have his phone. Walks into the store, and there's an underage clerk working there who had worked there all night. He was just finishing up his overnight shift, which happens to be illegal for an underage person, and he was working by himself. He had a phone in his hand when our client walked into the store. In fact, the clerk had a phone in his hand throughout this whole ordeal. Our client asked for help. You can see it on the video cameras. Help me, I'm bleeding. He says, I'm really, really getting tired, and he lays down on the floor, which is what happens as you're bleeding to death. The clerk says, get up off the floor, you're bleeding all over the place. Get out of here, and you can see him direct him outside through the doors. Well, the young man lays down on the concrete right outside the store and the gas station. It's disgusting, the pavement. And he just lays there and he's bleeding, and there's blood rolling down the sidewalk. People are coming to the gas station, looking at him, walking around him, getting their coffee or their cigarettes, getting back in their car and leaving, one after another. We have that all on video. The clerk comes out. He's shooting video on his camera of this guy.
Oh, no.
It's the saddest thing. Our client says, can I have something to rest my head on? The clerk gives him an orange cone from road construction. Here, put your head on this.
Okay.
Finally, about 8.5 minutes after he first entered the store, the clerk finally calls 911.
Finally.
The police arrive within 3.5 minutes. They have everything they need to save this man's life. Put a tourniquet around that arm. The guy lives. Between the time that he called and the time the police got there, he died in front of that gas station. So that was a crazy case. Here's why it was a crazy case.
Yeah.
Very sad, but we had to hold the gas station operator accountable.
Absolutely.
How do we do that? Well, they weren't supposed to have a 17-year-old clerk working overnight.
Right.
The reason that law exists, one of those reasons, is because young people don't know what to do all the time. And he was particularly heartless in how he was handling this, but also not mature.
Yeah,
right?
it's crazy.
So we claim that they were negligent in employing this young man. They never trained him in much of anything. And so it was a negligence case for how they managed their gas station, which led to the death and contributed to the death of this young man. The person that inflicted the injury, she pleaded, she took a plea deal and she was in prison because she caused the death. So she took accountability, but we had to try the case to a jury to hold the gas station accountable, which we did.
You did?
Crazy case.
Did you get a good outcome?
Yeah. We feel good about it. Yeah.
All right, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name's Neil Miller. I'm a lawyer in Troy, Michigan.
Nice. How long have you been an attorney?
50 years.
Wow. So why don't you go ahead and tell us the craziest case that you've ever been involved with?
The craziest cases I've ever been involved with. I had a case in rural Roscommon, and at a break, the female defendant, it wasn't a major case, decked the plaintiff, hit him in the face, knocked him out. that was the craziest thing that I've ever been involved with. Litigation-wise, though, all sorts of construction things that are odd. I can't get. I'm trying to think of a specific one. Explosions at Rouge Steel. I mean, everything.
Did you do the explosion at Rouge Steel plant?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get a good outcome on that case?
Yeah. I think my guy got a lot of money. It was okay. I mean, it wasn't okay. I mean, he lived. That was yeah. And that's really all that I can think of. That's out of the ordinary. So.
Well, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You.
I appreciate you being here.
Jared, I know you because we work together, but can you just introduce yourself a little bit about what you do, where you work, what kind of law you practice, how long you've been doing it, all that?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Jared Reardon for everyone who's not you. I'm an appellate attorney at Marco Law over here. And so pretty much I take up issues that our other appellate attorney, our head appellate attorney, Chris, doesn't have time to deal with because he's so busy doing more important things. Had a lot of opportunity to learn. I've dealt with a lot of interesting cases, and I also help around with other people's motions that they, take some of the heat off of everyone else as well.
I know you're like the best and most helpful ever. And can you tell me, I know you have a crazy case because John's trying to give it to me as a hazing ritual when I start. So can you talk about it a little bit?
It's a case. It's a giant class action case against a prison and a bunch of women who got scabies. And there's 2 cases. One's scabies, one's mold. And I've been on it since August when I came back from the bar.
Oh, yeah.
And nothing has happened the entire time. Chris had it before me. Nothing. As far as I know, nothing's happened on it before that either. One of them stayed. One of them after, how many months is August? It's 10 months. Mm-hmm. So after 10 months, we've had oral argument in front of the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals on one of the cases, the scabies case, which, honestly, that's something.
Yeah.
We'll take it at that point. But, yeah, it's just crazy because nothing's happened. Like, it's just, like, going in slow-mo. Like, I don't think there was any deps taken. That's what Chris says. There's not been a single dep in, like, 6 years this case has gone on.
I mean, John explained the case to me. He said this is going to outlive all of us at this firm now.
Oh, it 100%. It'll like, there's things distant in the future, like the Milky Way Andromeda collision. There's, like, heat death of the universe, and this thing's it's gonna outlast us all.
We'll live on Mars before they figure
100%.
Before they take a dab.
I mean, that's within the next 5 to 10 years, so they say. So 100% is coming before that.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna be Martians before then. It's also just so sprawling. There's so many people, and every call we have feels like it's a bunch of side quests. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. There's a bankruptcy that no one knows what's happening. The clients don't know. Like, we barely understand. We're not bankruptcy attorneys. No one on there is a bankruptcy attorney. So every time we just come on a little confused. It's like, what's happening with the bankruptcy? It's like, it's moving. It's moving along. Like,
it's one of those. It'll be here next summit.
Oh yeah, for sure. The next time someone else passes the bar, it'll be their hazing ritual to get that case.
My name is Sarah Gorski, and I work at Buckfire Law Firm. I've been there for about 3.5 years. It's a wonderful firm.
And can you tell me your craziest case story that you've ever had?
Absolutely. So it was not my case. It was somebody else's case I was assisting on, and I was helping them in trial. I was questioning one of the witnesses. It was actually a family member of the person who had passed away, and it hit home. It was brought out my emotions, and I started to tear up. And the judge called sidebar and was not happy and reamed me out for it. And everybody thought I was trying to influence the jurors, but it was definitely not an influence. It was my real, true emotions because it hit home.
Mm-hmm. That happens all the time too. And was the outcome of the case?
It was a good, very good outcome. So I know that they filed an appeal, and then the verdict was affirmed. So it was a good outcome.
Oh, so you're fine.
So very good
you
outcome.
didn't influence any jurors. The court of appeals said.
Yes, basically.
My name's Ali Kusan, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
I've been an attorney for, sounds bad, but 15 years now.
Oh, stop it.
Personal injury. Most of my time has been spent in Detroit, Michigan.
Nice. Well, go ahead and tell us about the craziest case or client that you've been involved with, litigated, settled, took to trial.
I'll tell you about a recent one. I don't know if it takes the cake for the craziest, but it's up there. So we just had a case. We went to trial, went to day one of trial, got through day one of trial, and it settled at the end of it. But this case was about a developmentally disabled adult male who was in the care of a community center. And even though there was no contractual obligation or there was nothing, no regulations which actually required it, the parents knew, and the center had an understanding that his food would be cut up into bite-sized pieces, that he would be monitored while he was eating. And as it turns out, they were not following that rule at all. And this case, them not following this rule resulted in, one, a choking incident where he actually was pronounced dead for a few minutes and revived. And that happened in December. And then despite this obvious warning, despite this understanding that he should have his food cut into small pieces, they continued to give him the food that was much larger than bite-sized pieces. And he choked to death on it in February of the next year.
Oh my God. Just a few months after. So you settled that. You went to trial on that and you settled.
Yeah, we had to take this through 2.5 years of litigation and then finally settled it after trying it for one day. It took them that long to realize they did something wrong.
Yeah, so Bob Lancy. I'm with the Buckfire Law Firm. I've been with them for 22 years now. Crazy to say that, but yeah. And so all personal injury plaintiff side work.
Nice.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about the craziest case that you've ever been involved with?
Okay, the craziest. I can never say one is the craziest.
Right.
I've had so many, right?
Most memorable.
But right. But I'll share one. It's a snow tubing case, right? So I had a client who was injured while snow tubing at I'll say a well-known Michigan ski resort. And so she was about a 60-year-old lady enjoying snow tubing with her granddaughter. And during the day, it was really warm, right? So the snow was melting. And then we get into the evening hours, 7 o'clock, sun's down, getting colder. Now all that water's turned to ice, right? Yep. And so what happens when we have ice conditions, the run gets faster, right?
Yeah.
So now you have these 20-something gentlemen running the snow tubing hill.
Oh boy.
They've done nothing to slow the speed of the run down. They've done nothing to start the snow tubers lower on the hill. And at the bottom of the hill, as you may know if you've ever done this, they have what I call the break wall.
Yep.
And so the break wall is intended to stop you from going too far.
Right.
Well, the break wall in this case was built in front of the parking lot. My client was sent down this hill from the top of the run. She went over the top of the wall into the parking lot and suffered, spinal fractures.
Oh.
I mean, it was a really terrible case. And so I file a lawsuit and I start taking depositions. And I start asking, where's your engineer? Who designed your snow tubing run? And ultimately it came down to, we don't have an engineer that designs the run. It was like they put their thumb up in the air and have their snowcat guy build this run, okay?
Oh, no.
I also take the deposition of, at least 5 of the people operating the run. Again, 20-something young men, nice guys, but maybe not the most experienced guys when it came to safety, right?
Right.
And again, they didn't have any clue on how to slow people down, start them, lower on the hill, They put mats out to slow you at the bottom, did none of that. Anyway, I settle the case, right?
Nice.
Yeah, did a great job for my client. And then I go to this resort with my family, check into the hotel, decide, let's go to dinner. So we go to dinner, and up walks our waiter. And I look at my wife and I say, that's one of the guys that was running the snow tubing run, okay? No. Thought it was strange. He didn't recognize me. I was, in a suit for the deposition, and now I'm in my, ski gear. And so I thought that was interesting. He goes away after taking our orders, and here comes the magician that's walking around doing magic tricks for the tables for the kids. I'm there with my kids. Up walks the magician. Again, I look at my wife and I say, there's another one of the guys whose depositions I took. And so we thought that was interesting.
Not running the snow tube anymore.
I think that what happens is after the day of skiing, then they have alternate jobs, right?
Yeah.
I figure that's it. I'm not going to see anyone else. We go back to the room, and my daughter, she was sick. She didn't feel well. It was terrible. She vomits in the bathroom. And so I tell my wife, please, you have to call housekeeping, and we need someone to help clean this. And knock, knock, knock on the door. I go to the door, open it up. Yet another one of these guys from the snow tube run, and what a nice young man, cleaned up the mess. But it was quite an experience. Every time I check into the hotel, I'm waiting for them to say that I'm not welcome there any longer, but it hasn't happened yet.
My name is Brooke Mathis. I'm a personal injury attorney in Detroit, Michigan, and I've been practicing for over 8 years now.
Nice. So give us your craziest case that you've ever been involved with or are currently involved with.
So the craziest case thus far has probably been these two nonverbal autistic children who, while at school, their teacher locked them in a closet repeatedly for weeks on end. And it wasn't discovered until a nurse came in as one of them was screaming and crying and kicking behind the door, banging on it, while a parapro was holding it locked.
Oh, that's terrible. Is it still in litigation?
It is. We're in federal court right now, and we brought some federal claims against the school system, the teachers, and the parapro.
You think it's going to go to trial?
I do think it may go to trial. I mean, we're certainly always preparing in that way, and we tried early settlement before the case went into litigation, which was not successful, unfortunately.
Okay, my name is Negin Khamverdi. I am a trial attorney and mom and content creator, if you want to really get specific. I have been an attorney for 10 years.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been great. I actually retired for about 5 years to do the whole mom thing, and that's when I kind of got into social media and content creation and all of that. And then I just came back and started working for Trial Lawyers for Justice with Nick Rowley about a year ago. So,
Nice. So why don't you tell us about the craziest case or client that you can remember being involved with?
So I'm going to say it's the craziest case I've been involved in because it's the 50 million Starbucks case that went viral.
Oh, yeah?
And I was on the trial team with Nick and the rest of the team, and it was the most insane experience because, one, the defendant was Starbucks, so that alone was just, it was crazy to go. It was like a Goliath kind of moment going up against them. And Starbucks is also, McDonald's was also one of the cases that we learned about in law school. So then to be involved in something like that in real life was really fantastic. And then to see Nick in action in a case like that and be able to retain a verdict of $50 million, it was, like you said, the craziest case to be involved in.
Yeah. So what was the preparation for a trial like that?
So we had that case for about 5 years since basically the incident occurred. It got referred to us by another attorney right away. And it was a weird case to work up medically because it was during COVID and everything was shut down. The world was shut down. But actually prepping for trial, in our eyes, it was a very straightforward case. We thought liability was clear. We thought damages were clear. So it was just more about making sure we translated that to the audience, or the jury.
My name is Harry Plotkin. I am a plaintiffs-only jury consultant. I've been doing it for, I think, over 20 years now.
Wow.
Plaintiff only, probably for at least about 10 years or so.
Nice.
I mean, obviously, when I get started, I would just do whatever
Right.
came in. And so quickly found out, I couldn't
Plaintiff's
sleep at
where
night
it's
if I
at.
wasn't doing plaintiff work.
Right.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about the craziest case that you've ever been involved with?
I would have to think. I mean, I've done so many trials. I picked probably 700 juries or more. So
Really?
I'm sure there are crazier ones.
Yeah.
But I guess for your listeners, I mean, I think one of the most interesting jury selections I did a couple years ago, I was working with a plaintiff attorney who he was a big Jerry Spence instructor, great guy, wonderful human being. The jurors loved him. And on the other side, it was a wrongful death case in Palm Springs, California. And this wonderful guy who worked at a energy plant unfortunately died because this company totally switched the way that they did their, they had to clean these filters out, these huge, I don't even know what they were.
Oh my gosh.
And he died because they switched the way that the instructions that they use, and nothing was labeled, and they didn't really train them on this new way of doing it. So if you did it the old way, you'd be fine, because they had to first clear out all the gas pressure in the system before you replace the filter. And he ended up dying. And the defense lawyer on the other side was insane. He was the most unlikable lawyer I've ever seen. He seemed like, I was like, is this guy a Bond villain? He had this accent that I thought it was German. He apparently is Danish or something.
Oh.
And just the most bloodless guy. He had these he had this little special silver pen that matched his cufflinks, that matched his little glasses.
Oh.
Apparently later in the trial he switched it out. He had a gold pen with the gold cufflinks and everything.
Really?
But it was just the craziest thing where you had one lawyer on one side who was just relating to jurors, and
Yes.
and one guy who was just the most he would just ask him questions and wasn't listening to him at all.
A cartoon villain of a defense attorney.
Yeah, and he wasn't mean, he wasn't aggressive. He was just one of those guys you're like, geez, this guy is like a robot. He is and he doesn't care. And so it was amazing case. It was a case that, and I heard later a friend of mine had some cases against this guy, and this guy was like, oh, this case is nothing, it's not going to be a big case and everything. It was a $150 million verdict for the death of one guy, which just goes to show you that how you relate to jurors and how much they like you and trust you is just huge. Obviously these jurors hated this guy.
Absolutely.
And he didn't say anything offensive. He was just he didn't just give this impression I don't care, I'm not going to listen to you, I don't really care about people. And in a case where you're representing real people and real feelings and real lives, God, that's just everything. Do
you have any crazy juror stories? Any jurors gone wild?
Yeah, I have so many of them. There's one time when the guy came, a jury reported for jury duty, and he was talking with the judge. Where are you from and everything? Oh, I'm from the Philippines. Oh, wow. So when did you move here? Where'd you come here? And he's like, oh, just yesterday. And the judge was like, wow, you just moved here yesterday? How are you on jury duty? He goes, well, why did you move back? And he's like, well, I got the jury summons. Everything. The guy literally flew. He got a jury summons. He used to live in California. He had moved out. He got jury summons. He flew all the way back
from the Philippines
to serve on a jury, and the jurors just all applauded him.
Yeah.
And everything like
that. Did he end up serving on the jury?
No, the judge let him go. He was like, "I'm not going to make you serve in this case." It was insane.
I would be so upset if I flew that far. It didn't end up on the jury.
Oh yeah, no kidding. Yeah, and I've had cases where a juror, we had a mistrial because a juror was overheard just bad-mouthing the other side. It actually was a great juror for us. And the judge called a mistrial because a coworker called into the court and said, one of my coworkers is on your jury, and she's just talking about how she's already decided the case and all this stuff.
No.
And so, you got to be really careful with your jurors and making sure that they, you want jurors who have strong feelings, but I've lost a juror because in a case who was dismissed because he was so angry in the middle of trial. He was like, I hate Coffee Bean. It was a trial against Coffee Bean. I hate Coffee Bean. I will never go there again. I don't think that was enough for the judge to dismiss the guy. You're allowed to have feelings as a juror. but he's decided I guess the judge thought he already decided the case and got rid of him. So jurors have strong feelings. And it's okay. I mean, and the funny thing is, the better lawyer you are, the more you're going to stir up those feelings. So it's so hard to make sure that you keep them.
I've seen it a bunch from John Marco himself.
I'm sure John does a great job of really like stirring the pot with these jurors. But then you got to make sure that they don't talk about the case and they don't.
Right.
But I've had cases where they're just. Clapping during a cross-examination or shooting daggers at the defense.
Ooh.
I mean, and I think as a judge, it's like judges have to understand jurors are allowed to react to the evidence. That's not bias.
Right.
And we explain that in jury selection all the time. I have the lawyers that I'm working with explain to them, having a conscience is not a bias.
No.
You can have strong feelings as long as it's the evidence that you're responding to.
Yeah.
And so I love it when I have expressive jurors. They just can't go too far and get themselves excused. Yeah, exactly.
My name is Larry Buckfire. I'm a trial attorney. My firm is Buckfire & Buckfire. I'm the owner and president of it. I've been practicing for 36 years. The firm was founded by my parents, actually, David and Vicky Buckfire. And my brother Daniel Buckfire practiced with the firm up until about 10 years ago. And now I have 12 attorneys and a really stellar staff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So go ahead, tell us the craziest case that you've ever been involved in or client that you've ever had to deal with.
I had a case, it was probably about 20 years ago, where my client was on probation for a misdemeanor offense, and she would go see her probation officer in his office. Well, apparently he, to reduce her sentence and her obligations, had her perform sexual favors on him. And it was a crazy case. There was it was the battle of credibility, whether she was believable or not. But ultimately, the probation officer pled guilty and was convicted, and we were able to settle her civil case for a substantial amount.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about what the trial prep was like for something like that?
Yeah, the case did not go to trial, and it was not close to trial. It was really a heavy motion practice case. They were trying to exclude testimony. They were trying to get the case dismissed on legal reasons. But the biggest obstacles in the case were obviously, one, they were arguing consent, that she consented to it, which really, when someone is in a position of power over you, consent is really not a viable defense.
Right.
And the other aspect was, he denied that he did it. And so it's literally a he says, she says. And he's somebody who works for the government. She's somebody with a past that included, mental instability, some drug use, and some other things. And so the credibility was a big issue. But ultimately, that's what made her vulnerable and gave him the power over her to engage in his conduct. And at the end of the day, that's what drove the case, and that's what drove the damages.
Any crazy depositions come out of that case?
The depositions were difficult because she's a very emotional person.
Yeah.
We had constant breaks. And the deposition of the defendant was difficult as well. The defense counsel objected nonstop through the deposition. One of the obstacles you have when there's a potential criminal case too is they'll object to they'll use the Fifth Amendment, and they'll say, I'm instructing my client not to answer because he might incriminate himself and there's a potential pending case. So I didn't want to stay the case and drag it on until his criminal proceedings were done, so I did my best within those parameters to get the information I needed and not have this case go up on appeal for 3 years and to move it along.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Cases Gone Wild, special edition brought to you downtown Detroit from the Michigan Trial Lawyers Summit, where we had the pleasure of hearing from all these guests from around the country about their craziest cases. We'll see you in another 2 weeks. If you or someone you know need help, please go to marcolaw.com or give us a call, 833-MARCO-LAW, M-A-R-K-O Law. We'll see you in another 2 weeks for another great episode of Cases Gone Wild.